Hey guys, Caroline Guntur here, and today I want to talk to you quickly about how to make sure that your tasks are actual tasks and not larger projects. This is one of the most common things that I see happen with beginners in project management, and I thought it would be worth having a talk about this and actually defining that for you so that no matter what type of project that you are into, whether it's creating a new garden for yourself, organizing your photos, fixing your genealogy, or painting your house, that you understand the difference between a project and the tasks that go into a project, okay? So let's talk about this. A project is defined as something that you are doing, usually that you haven't done before. It's not recurring, it's a one-time thing, and it has a start date and it has an end date, okay? And then the tasks are actually the things that happen that make up that project, okay? So let's say if you are going to paint your house, painting your house is not just like a thing that you do. You don't just pick up a paintbrush and start painting, right? There's so much that goes into that, right? You have to pick a color, right? Which means you have to drive to the store, you have to pick up some paint samples, you have to compare them, you may have to get some of those trial jars, the little ones, right? You might have to paint a couple of samples on the wall to look at it in different lights. You have to tape the rooms, you have to cover your furniture, you have to get the right supplies. I mean, there's so much that goes into all of that. So do you see how that would be a giant project? And if you actually define that as a task, you're going to be off to a horrible start. Why? Because there's so much that goes into it that you haven't accounted for. And when you're planning projects, the biggest thing that comes up is time. And how do you manage the time it takes? And how do you know how long things are going to take, right? This is a huge issue that I see a lot of beginners struggle with, how long things take. And I think as people, we're naturally really bad at time. Time really passes quickly for all of us. And you say, oh, I'll be done in 5 minutes when you actually don't mean that. Or I'll be done in 2 minutes when you actually don't mean that. So I think all of us have a very tricky relationship with time. Sometimes time flies if you're doing something fun. Sometimes stuff can take so long if it's a task that you don't like doing, right? So to figure out how long things take, it's really important that you actually think about your project as a whole. You break it down into smaller chunks. Sometimes you need to break it down into phases and then into tasks within those phases so that you actually can see how much work things take and how long things take, right? And what you can do to help with this is basically just brainstorm, right? It doesn't have to be perfectly organized in order the first time you think about something, right? If you have a project, let's say you're going to paint the house again, as an easy example, just start brainstorming on a blank piece of paper and ask yourself, well, what are all the things that are going to go into that project, right? So again, you're going to have to pick a paint color, and even picking a paint color is not a one-time small task. You know, sometimes you might have to try a couple of different colors. You might have to paint them on the wall and see, like, how do they look in different lights? You might have to get an opinion. You might have to pick different colors for different rooms. I mean, there's so much that can go into just picking a paint color. So even that could be its own phase within a project, right? And if you brainstorm all of these things out, you'll actually see that you can then group them into phases, and then that makes up the project. Because what happens if you go in and schedule paint your house as a task in your calendar or your project management system, you're never going to actually get to that task. You're not going to be able to check it off because it's so much bigger than what you can do quickly, right? And what happens then is that we have that standing master task list of stuff that never gets done because they're so big that we can't get to it in the time that we have available. So what I want you to do is really try and brainstorm anytime you're thinking about starting a new project, thinking about all the moving pieces that have to go into that project, and then trying to group them into logical phases and into a time frame that makes sense for you, okay? And one thing that I actually help my clients do in whatever project management system that they have is I tend to do a little level of difficulty drop down menu for them, or some sort of multiple select choice that they can then look at to think about if it's a project, if it's a phase, if it's a task, whatever it is. So I'm actually going to show you that really quickly here in Notion. Love Notion. It's such a great tool for project management. And if I actually want to have a new task in Notion, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put paint the house just as an example, because that's what we talked about. And then here in level of difficulty, you can see that I've actually put in quick, meaning done in minutes, not so fast, meaning 1 hour plus, or slow, is this a project? And whatever project management system that you have, you can put in something similar to this so that you have a trigger that reminds you, like, oh, wait a minute. Am I actually talking about a task, or am I actually talking about a project, right? So if I select this here, quick, done in minutes, right away I know, yes, that's a task. That's something I can check off, do quickly, and it'll be done. If I go into not so fast, 1 hour, should that be a phase, right? Or is that actually a task? I have to think about it for a minute. In this case, paint the house is going to be slow, which means that this box here tells me, is this a project, right? Because it's asking me, should this be something different? This should not be a task. So if I actually put select paint color for house, that's actually also slow. So again, is that a project or is it a phase, right? It depends on how decisive you are, how many colors you're dealing with, all of that. But this drop-down level of difficulty makes you think. So is that something that you could possibly apply to your own project management system to give you that mental trigger of, oh, wait a minute, I think I'm misjudging how long this takes? Because we are all limited on time. We all want to get a lot of stuff done in as little time as possible. So if you can have some tools implemented like this to help you remember, all the better. And obviously, this is set up like this in Notion. You can do that in any project management system that you have. You just have to be able to do a drop-down toggle or some sort of checkbox or set up like that, right? Just so that you have that reminder. If I actually pick up paint samples, oops, can't type today. Now I'm down to a task, right? And you could see that the project that I would put in here would be paint the house, right? So that is one task within a larger project, okay? So I hope that was helpful. Let me know how you handle tasks versus projects. I'd love to hear your feedback on that. I think this is one of the most common mistakes to make, is to overestimate your abilities in quickly finishing things, or underestimate how long things take. So make sure that you understand the difference between a project, a phase, and a task, and all of your projects will go so much smoother. I'll see you in the next video.